Welcome to the podcast.
A totally human experience.
I'm Logan.
I'm Aiden.
And I'm Nikon.
And this is a podcast where we are totally humans and not orangutans.
Speaking of orangutans, they are known as one of the smartest animals on the planet, but they're not really. Dolphins are way smarter than orangutans are.
But even smarter than dolphins, I'd argue ants are way, way, way smarter.
Really? I don't think so. Dolphins, literally jump out of the water and they have their own language.
Yeah, so do ants. Have you heard of pheromones?
Like the chemicals?
Yeah, those chemicals they use to communicate. And with all the ants combined, you'd think that some of them get astray, but no, the lines they form to get from place A to place B are entirely straight. There's pretty much no delineation.
So they use chemicals to talk to each other?
Yes, it is a form of language.
Okay. Well, dolphins use tools. They use rocks to break open clams and oysters and things like that.
Not only do ants also use tools, but also the three main things to form a society, much like humans do, which could be considered a sign of intelligence, is fire use, which obviously neither dolphins nor ants have, tool use, which I'd say dolphins do beat out ants in that category, but also agriculture, which ants have in spades.
What do you mean? What do they grow?
Leafcutter ants actually cut up leaves in order to grow fungus inside their colonies. They put the dead leaves there on the fungus in order to help them grow, and then eat the fungus.
Okay, so you say they have a society because of agriculture, but...
I'm not saying they have a society, okay? They don't have fire use still, neither do dolphins, and they are lacking in tool use, although they do still have some to an extent. However, I would say that agriculture is a big part of society, and them having it does signify that they're close to that.
I'd say that, community bonds are very important too, and dolphins have pods in which, they stay for life, and they actually love each other and play together and do things like that, and I don't think ants do.
Well, here's the thing. Although I do agree that they don't love each other in a sense, they don't technically have the certain brain to do that. Emotional intelligence isn't the only intelligence there is, and when you combine all of the ants into one superorganism, which is an actual term used to define a colony of ants or multiple colonies of ants, they are incredibly intelligent.
But can't fungus also form super colonies, so could fungus be the most intelligent?
I mean, technically, but fungus form super colonies, but ants are a special type. They're eusocial. Eusocial is basically the level right below a hive mind. You know, hive minds in sci-fi where they're always everyone does the exact same thing. Eusociality is right below that, and it's where people work together almost in sync, as if they're all one organism because of all the pheromones they use.
Don't bees do the same thing, so wouldn't bees also be the smartest?
Yes, bees also do the same thing along with wasps, since they're all in the order Hymenoptera, so along with some subtermites and all that jazz. But ants are special because not only do they have the whole agriculture part, bees do have that production, but they don't actually grow anything. But also bees and wasps don't use tools, whereas ants kind of do.
Bees do have agriculture, though. They literally pollinate most, crops that we have. So they help in our agriculture.
Remind me why bees are relevant to the topic.
Because he's saying that bees could be arguably as smart as animal instead of ants. But here's the thing. Bees don't grow flowers. They help those flowers grow, but it's more like the flowers themselves are taking advantage of the bees in a mutualistic relationship. Ants, in and of themselves, actively take advantage of the fungus. They actively grow it to eat it, and the fungus doesn't really benefit much from it.
Right, but here's the thing. Ants don't communicate with humans, and dolphins do, and that also plays an important role. Dolphins have been known to actually communicate with humans and help them, get out of places, and they've also saved humans before, which I feel like is more important than ants' agriculture and eusocialness.
Well, not only have ants helped humans a lot before, specifically trapjaw ants, they have actually been used by tribes as sutures before regular sutures were invented. Just take the ants, they have insane bite force, and just clamp it onto the wound to clamp it shut. So ants have helped humans before, but I get what you mean when you're saying that they actually have an intent to. However, I wouldn't say that helping humans or communicating with humans is the end-all be-all.
Sorry to interrupt your debate, but have you heard of the phrase memento mori? In Latin, it means remember death. This is important because it humbles us, reminding us that we are not permanent. Our time on this earth will end. However, when you swap the Latin mori for the Japanese mori, you instead get remember wood, which is also important, I guess, because it reminds us that our houses are made of wood.
Yeah, while it may not be the end-all be-all, it's still important, and communication between them is important. And pheromones, while they may be communication, they're more like they are the eusocial communication and not really the interpersonal communications that build like connections between individuals and make bonds for them.
But like I said, why are those bonds and connection between individuals important? Do they really signify intelligence, or just emotional intelligence?
Well, emotional intelligence is still a large part of intelligence.
I would argue that saying what is the most intelligent animal doesn't necessarily mean emotional intelligence. Typically, it's more so practical things like problem solving.
Yeah, which dolphins use a lot of. They use seaweed nets to move things around and carry things.
But also, like ants, first of all, agriculture, one of the three tenets of civilization. But also this test done, where it took a bunch of humans and a bunch of ants and gave them this T-like shape and had them move it through two holes that are too small for the T to go through. And guess what? The ants solved it only about 5 seconds slower than humans. And it took the humans like 10 minutes to do it.
Okay. Well, interesting that is, if you put not a practical test like that, but a test of intelligence like a human test, like an IQ test or something, in front of an ant, how well would they score on it?
Well, here's the thing. Actually, to be perfect, because you put it in front of the whole colony, eventually one of them will get it right. So, you could argue that. But also, in a more practical situation, I don't think arguing that one ant is smarter than one dolphin is realistic. It would be arguing that one super colony of ants, one super colony, which typically are identified as in type of organism, even if it's not technically organism, is a much more realistic example.
But how is that fair to the dolphin? Because you're putting the dolphin up against multiple organisms while the dolphin is just a single organism.
Well, a colony of ants still weighs way less than a dolphin.
Why does weight matter to intelligence?
Okay, but also computers work based off bits, and although one computer is made up of a billion bits, it's still one computer, and it's fair to say that a computer has intelligence. So, a bunch of ants all firing off signals, their pheromones, could be argued to make up one collective consciousness that would be a much fairer sign against another animal.
Okay, so if I have a pod of dolphins working together to hunt down a shark, would that be fair to put against another animal?
I'm not so sure because here's the thing. Ants are eusocial. They actually have that insanely deep connection to the point where a colony of ants is considered to be like an organism. Dolphin pods, although they are good teamwork, they've not reached the level of eusociality.
Right, but this brings me back. How is it fair to put millions of organisms against a single organism? Because although it may act like one organism, it is not one organism. It is however many are in this ant colony, and that still could be a lot more collective power than the dolphin, which isn't fair to the dolphin being a single organism going against multiple organisms.
Because I would argue it's not really multiple organisms. If you take a hive mind, for example, the entire thing is about a hive mind being one organism. And although ants don't reach the level of a hive mind quite yet, eusociality is so close that I think it's a fair example to consider all of them as a collective to be a hive mind, or at least close enough that it means that we should consider them one organism. And weighing them against dolphins should be a colony of ants versus a dolphin.
It's not. It's multiple organisms, even if they're eusocial, even if it's just individuals following orders. That's like the army. You could call the army eusocial because they have signals and things they use to communicate to tell each other what to do.
Not quite. Humanity doesn't technically reach the level of eusociality, which why I would argue ants could be considered even smarter than humans, although I'm not going to die on that hill. But I'd say that having them be that eusocial, having them be that interconnected, and having them be such a strong collective because they're eusocial means you should weigh them to be as one organism rather than a million different organisms.
But why should you weigh them to be as one organism when they're not actually one organism? They're multiple organisms. They're separate from each other.
Because
They're
they're
not one
eusocial.
organism. Because they're eusocial. Because they're eusocial. Because they're connected. Many animals are connected. That does not make them one organism.
I would argue that it does because it has been shown in research papers that a super colony of ants has been classified as a organism of a sort. And weighing a colony of ants against a single dolphin is arguably fairer in the tests because a colony of ants is always going to be working together. But a dolphin, although they do usually have pods, a dolphin will sometimes go alone.
Okay. You never said how ants would do on an IQ test, which was one of my questions.
Well, I gave the jokey answer, but realistically, I feel like they would get it eventually. If there was some kind of punishment system, like there is out in the real world, where if they get a wrong answer, something bad will happen, they would figure it out way faster than a dolphin would.
Right. But dolphins have already done it and shown that they're very intelligent, almost as intelligent as humans. And ants, and most IQ tests are visual, so how would ants interact with that?
Well, it's simple. Braille. I'm kidding. But also, they would still be able to see it. They have eyes. And also, I feel like this whole tangent about an IQ test is kind of stupid. IQ tests are not the end-all be-all for intelligence. And I'd argue that IQ tests are a terrible sign of intelligence. IQ tests mostly favor more memorization-based things, and have been written about multiple times about how they're not really effective to test true intelligence.
Okay. I agree with you on the point that IQ tests are not very good signs of intelligence, but they still have a lot of merit in scientific circles today, which is why I brought it up. But back to tool use, what tools do ants use? Like, dolphins use seaweed nets, they use rocks to break open things, they use seaweed nets to carry things back to their pods' home grounds. They interact with other animals, and, like, they interact in a very collaborative way when hunting and protecting their young. Like, how do ants compare with tool use to dolphins?
Well, I'll answer the tool use part first before going into the other thing you said about collaboration. Tool use ants do have. First of all, one funny thing with leafcutter ants and other types of those ants that live in trees, they actually use their young as little glue guns in order to glue leaves together. You could argue that they're using their young as these tools, and also they're using the leaves as tools to build their own nests. Along with that, they use so many other animals with them and other items, like the leaves. You could argue those are pure fertilizer for the fungus, and that is a part of tool use. But also, on your thing about them not, on dolphins helping each other way more, ants are literally a colony.
Yes.
There are these specific types of ants called aquapletes, which their entire job is to lay about around the colony and store water in their social stomach. That is how cooperative they are, that they can afford to do nothing and just be living fridges.
Right. Here's my question to that. If they're eusocial and they're essentially a hive mind, so they're one collective consciousness, how is that collaboration? That's not, because collaboration has to be between two consciousness, and the way you're portraying eusocialism, it sounds like it's one consciousness, not two.
Well, like I said, it's right below a hive mind. A hive mind would be a true single consciousness, but eusocialism basically mimics a hive mind with pheromones, but each of them are still their own individual almost, and they can still collaborate with each other. Along with that, even in a hive mind scenario, I would still say that is collaboration, even if it's effectively with different parts of yourself.
I wouldn't say it's collaboration, because collaboration is two different consciousnesses or organisms, whatever you want to call it, interacting with each other and helping each other.
I can see your point. I can see that, yeah, dolphins are probably almost definitely smarter in the emotional part. Ants, in themselves, are kind of stupid. And if you weigh a single ant against a dolphin, I mean, I don't feel like that's an argument. The dolphin would just eat the ant. But I still stand by the fact that I think ants could be argued to be way smarter in the same sense that, like, a computer with a bunch of bits, or a hive mind could be argued to be smarter than anything else, like a human.
I can see your point of why ants are smarter. I still think that dolphins, just with their tool use and their emotional capabilities and communication capabilities, are smarter, or maybe even just as smart as ants.
Well, agree, disagree.
I guess, yeah.
Well, this has been an episode of the podcast.
Totally human experience.
If you enjoyed this episode, please watch out for any more episodes that come along. And also, hit that like button and subscribe. God, I hate saying that.